Good evening. Boris Johnson's Brexit deal is on a knife edge tonight, with the numbers too close to call ahead of tomorrow's crucial vote in the Commons. He needs 320 votes to get it passed, but has only 287 Conservative MPs. It means he must persuade some Labour rebels, ex-Tories and sceptics in his own party to support him. The Brexit deal would see the UK pay around £33 billion in a so-called divorce bill when leaving. EU and UK citizens would retain their residency and social security rights, and there'd be a transition period until at least the end of 2020, during which the UK would abide by the EU's laws. The whole of the UK would leave the EU customs union, but with customs checks on some goods sent from Great Britain to Northern Ireland. Our political editor Kuenssberg reports.
That's not the real Boris Johnson. It's a fancy dress version. A climate protester who'd scaled the scaffolding around Big Ben. The actual Prime Minister is teetering on an even narrower edge. He has to take a leap, not knowing if he'll meet victory or defeat.
We've got a deal that allows us to get out of the backstop that's abolished, and we can do free trade agreements as one whole United Kingdom around the world. Now, clearly, what matters is MPs coming together across the House tomorrow to get this thing done. And I just kind of invite everybody to imagine what it could be like tomorrow evening if we have settled this.
But in order to get this deal, though, you have given some concessions. You've accepted quite a significant customs border between Northern Ireland and the rest of the United Kingdom. Now, that is something you said you would never do. You said no British Prime Minister could do that.
No, and what we haven't, on the contrary, nobody wants to have checks at the Northern Irish border. So what we've agreed with the EU is that temporarily and by consent of the people of Northern Ireland, if there's stuff that's coming from GB into Ireland or from anywhere else in the world via Northern Ireland into Ireland, then yes, there can be checks. But that, of course, and those checks can be levied by UK authorities. But that is very far from having a tariff border.
By your own admission, and it's there in black and white in the deal, there will be extra customs checks. And for some people, including your allies, that's just not acceptable. That puts the union at risk.
There are no tariffs going from GB to NI.
No, but there are extra checks.
And
that's in the agreement.
There already are, as you know, there already are. But of course, it is also going to be superseded as we come out, as I hope we do at the end of this month, as we get on to negotiate the UK-EU free trade agreement. So all these arrangements are in fact going to be obsolete once we do that big EU-UK free trade deal.
You have made a compromise to get the bigger prize of the deal, but do you accept that's what's happened here? That you have broken a promise you made to the DUP
No, I don't accept
for the
that
bigger
at all.
prize of the deal?
No.
That's what they feel.
Well, I think that what you have is a fantastic deal for all of the UK.
The deal brokered by brains in Whitehall and in Brussels contains concessions from the EU and the UK. It leaves the future more open between the two sides compared to the previous agreement, and in theory gives the UK more ability to trade round the rest of the world. But it does contain what could be significant changes to how Northern Ireland fits into the jigsaw of the rest of the UK. And that's not the only reason why the Prime Minister faces an uphill struggle to get this through MPs.
Hello, can I give you a leaflet about the school?
In Wakefield, around 70% of people voted to leave the EU. But just like the vast majority of Labour MPs, Mary Cray here has no intention at all of backing Mr Johnson's Brexit.
Hello, darling. And obviously off to London tomorrow.
Right.
On the deal. What do you think we should be doing?
About the Brexit deal?
Yeah.
Renegotiate.
She's one of many who'd rather have another referendum instead.
I'll be voting against the deal tomorrow. This is not what people vote for. People have told me they want their vote back. They want to vote on this deal. It's too important to be left to the politicians.
Even though party bosses are trying to talk them out of it,
on behalf of John MacDonald,
there is a clutch of Labour MPs whose votes might help the deal sneak through.
I've been lobbied this morning by John MacDonald and Jeremy Corbyn, through Ian Lavery, the chairman, to abstain. I'm 100% Leaver, and they expect me, the flick of the fingers, to turn around. No, I'm not going to do it.
Even if there's a sprinkling of Labour help, Number 10 still tonight needs to work to make sure all of their own side are lined up. Some of the most resolute Brexiteers may yet hold out.
I'm very glad that we've had such constructive discussions. Nothing is concluded yet.
There is a good chance this will not pass. If it does not pass, do you still say we will leave the European Union at the end of this month?
I think that's much the... I do. I think we should leave the European Union
That's
on
very different.
October
saying I think
31st.
we should is very different to saying we
are.
will.
Then let me say we will leave the European Union on October the 31st.
Not all of his colleagues are privately so sure. Leaving in 2 weeks might seem barely plausible this time tomorrow. But for now, every single minister has one job and one job only: to get this deal over the line. Laura Kuenssberg, BBC News, Westminster.
So tomorrow will be all about the numbers. Can the Prime Minister get enough support from across the Commons to see a deal finally approved? Well, our Deputy Political Editor John Pienaar has been doing the maths and he's with me now. John.
Well, for all today's sweet talking and arm twisting, this deal still leaves the UK's future relationship with the EU up for negotiation. Brexiteers want to strike new trade deals and break clear of EU rules and regulations. Critics fear we'll be worse off. But first, Boris Johnson has to get MPs behind his deal that allows the UK to leave, and the numbers look painfully tight. He either has to win round the DUP, which looks close to impossible, or look elsewhere for votes. Why? Well, in the Commons, the PM needs 320 votes to guarantee a win. The DUP's 10 MPs don't want to be blamed for a no-deal Brexit, but they fear customs and regulatory checks on goods arriving from the British mainland could weaken the union, and they won't back the deal. Most of the PM's 287 Tories will back him, some reluctantly. A number of the rebels have been won over. Some keen Tory unionists may stick with the DUP. Mr Johnson badly wants some Labour MPs to vote with him for a deal, and a number likely will. They fear losing support if Brexit's not delivered. Tonight, Downing Street's trying to secure their votes with promises. Workers' rights and green safeguards will be protected and strengthened by law. Jeremy Corbyn doesn't believe it, and Labour will vote strongly against the Brexit plan. Now, what about the independents who were thrown out of the Conservative Party? Well, they'll split too. Some will back the PM, including a few who want back into the Tory fold. They want to keep their seats. Others want to stay close to the EU, but they might swallow this deal in the meantime. A few who are worried about Britain's future after Brexit may refuse. Now, Mr Johnson can forget Joe Swinson's Lib Dems, the SNP and some others. They're against Brexit. Other big struggles are coming too. A push for another referendum, for example. And tomorrow, some MPs will try to block a no-deal Brexit and make sure the deal is approved and becomes law, even if it means another delay. Trust at Westminster is that low. Meanwhile, Boris Johnson's got a lot of persuading to do, Rita, before he can be truly confident of hitting that magic number.
OK, John, thank you. So, on the eve of this crunch vote, how are voters feeling about it all? Our political correspondent Alex Forsyth has been to the constituency of High Peak in the Peak District, an area which was split right down the middle in the EU referendum.
The calm of the Peak District feels a far cry from the frenzied wrangling in Westminster. But here, people know tomorrow could dictate where the country's heading. This established cheese business in Buxton sends bespoke products around the world, relying on imports from continental Europe. Its owner, frustrated at Brexit delays, knows exactly what he wants from Parliament.
I just want them to put the deal over the line. Do it. Parliamentarians have done themselves no favours. I'm an old established Democrat. If the people have voted for it, whichever way they vote, your obligation is to do it. That's what you're paid to do.
That's the view the Prime Minister's counting on. MPs feeling pressure from the public who just want this wrapped up. At a nearby fruit and veg wholesalers, which buys Bradbury's cheese, that's the overwhelming desire.
These coming from Spain for us.
Managing Director Sarah had voted Remain, but now just wants an exit deal agreed without further delay. If Parliament says no to this deal, what will you think?
I'll just think it's ridiculous. We've been doing it for 3 years, so what guarantees in another 6 months, another year, that we're still going to get the deal we want? It's like having another referendum because we didn't like the vote. It's not going to achieve anything. We've made the decision.
Across the country, there is real Brexit fatigue, and Boris Johnson hopes that might convince MPs to back his deal, get it done, rather than risk the wrath of the frustrated public. And if they don't, you can bet he'll blame Parliament. But Chris, who runs his own kitchen fitting business, doesn't buy it. Originally a Remainer, he too is craving certainty, but not at any cost.
Is it the right deal? Because this could impact for the next 50, 100 years. So to do it right now and to take that little bit of extra time, in my opinion, is probably worthwhile doing.
Not far away, Joanne, who helps run her family farm, could also just stomach a short delay. She fully backs Brexit but wants a deal, even if that means another public vote.
Yeah, I'd go for it. I mean, I shouldn't come for that, but I mean, if they feel that that's going to really solve everything, go for it. We've put up with it for 3.5 years. What's another 6 months?
That's one point of consensus. Frustration that there's still no resolution, and scepticism, even now, that MPs will find one. Alex Forsyth, BBC News, Buxton.
Let's get a final word from John. It's really on a knife edge, isn't it?
Rita, trying to call what happens tomorrow with any kind of confidence is a mug's game. It really could be very close. Boris Johnson can say he's optimistic if he likes, that's his style. But to me, that looks like show. And at Downing Street, there's a nervousness below the surface. Nervousness in particular that they could be forced, Boris Johnson could be forced to seek another Brexit extension for as long as it takes to get Brexit finally approved. That is written into law and agreed not just by Westminster, but the European Parliament too. That could take Brexit beyond October the 31st and force Boris Johnson to break his word. Now, behind this, there's a cross-party alliance of MPs, including senior figures such as the former Tory Cabinet Minister, Oliver Letwin. They want to make sure there's no no-deal Brexit, even by accident. And Downing Street are trying hard to persuade Oliver Letwin to back off. Now, there is a weariness with Brexit around the country. We saw it in Alex's report. We've seen it before. At Westminster, it's more like battle fatigue. It's more like war weariness. But I'm afraid this cliffhanger of a political story, this Brexit, looks like having some way still to run, whatever happens tomorrow.
John, thank you. Now, the Governor of the Bank of England, Mark Carney, has welcomed the progress made by the government on Brexit. But he said that Boris Johnson's current deal would hit the size of the UK economy more than the closest version negotiated by Theresa May. Our economics editor Faisal Islam reports now from the International Monetary Fund meeting in Washington.
In Washington, meeting the world's financial leaders at the IMF, the Bank of England Governor, Mark Carney, says the deal back home has a big economic positive, taking a disorderly Brexit off the table.
I can be absolutely clear relative to no deal. This is materially better. It's very welcome news. It's welcome in the UK. It's welcome globally, literally globally. I heard that last night bilaterally and in the bigger room of the G20.
But that's compared to no deal. This new deal could itself lead to the return of certain customs checks not currently required between the UK and mainland Europe. Many independent economists and former Chancellor Philip Hammond calculate the more distant relationship signalled by Boris Johnson's deal would lead to a smaller economy.
If there are extra frictions in UK or GB EU trade, that will mean the economy being smaller or growing by less.
We don't know exactly what would have been negotiated under Prime Minister May's deal in the end. We don't know if this deal is adopted exactly what would be negotiated under this deal in the end. I can tell you that my judgment would be that there's some overlap between the two. Now, if it were the deepest possible partnership under Prime Minister May's deal, there wouldn't be overlap between the two. And that last bit was diplomacy.
That's understandable diplomacy at a delicate moment. But the basic message from the governor here in Washington is that, yes, the chances of a disorderly Brexit are lifting, and that's a boost. But a fundamentally more distant relationship between the UK and the EU will also have consequences for the British economy. All this comes at a time when central bankers like him are running out of firepower, and there's more scope for governments to boost a precarious world economy by borrowing more.
We're in a world that has challenges. It's likely to have very low interest rates for a while longer yet. That creates greater opportunity for fiscal policy. It also creates opportunities for private businesses who want to take advantage of, if they see where the world is going, if they see an opportunity to borrow and invest and grow jobs.
Economic turbulence in the world stretches well beyond Brexit. The boost from lifting the no-deal cloud is real, but it's tempered by a new uncertainty about where exactly Brexit is heading. Faisal Islam, BBC News in Washington.